Have you ever felt like your body is against you and you just can't see the pathway forward? Hi, I'm Dr. Kelly McCann, and I am a board certified internal medicine physician. I also am a pediatrician. I am trained in functional, integrative, and environmental medicine, and I have lived through mold, Lyme disease, mast cell activation syndrome, and I help people who have complex chronic illness find their way and their path forward. And on top of that, I have a master's in spiritual psychology. So it's all about helping people get to their physical well-being through understanding their mental, emotional, and spiritual connections to themselves. Stick around to hear real-life examples of people I've helped heal, specific steps to help you figure out what your body is trying to tell you. Could it be that not being your authentic self is the cause of the symptoms you're experiencing? Let's check it out.
What if you didn't get sick by accident? What if your illness isn't a punishment, but a message? A message your body has been trying to send to you for years, and this is the moment you finally hear it. Today on the Masters of Wellness podcast, we're asking a radical question. What if the thing that broke you is actually the thing that can wake you up to who you were born to be? If you or someone you love is fighting through something, chronic pain, autoimmune struggles, anxiety, burnout, stay with us, because what you're about to learn has the power to change the entire story of your life.
Welcome back to the Masters of Wellness podcast. I'm Edward Curtin. I've been in this industry for 30 plus years, but I still don't have all the answers, which is why we bring our friends together to learn more. Today with me, as always, co-pilot of Curiosity, Chuck. Chuck, quick gut check.
I like that better than the cat whisperer.
Yeah. Mate, a quick gut check. If your body could talk, what would it say to you today?
Today, which is a beautiful, beautiful day, it would say, thank you for taking care of me. If this is the first time you're tuning in, we started this podcast because I was going through a health journey. Ed and I were having amazing conversations, and I was really, really getting to know myself deeply. I got thyroid cancer twice, and I am very, very healthy. I'm actually the healthiest I've ever been. And I thank cancer every single day for coming my way, because it was a wake-up call. And I'm so excited for today's episode, because you're going to hear someone way smarter than me explain a lot of the things that I may have already learned, but man, I'm going to learn so much more. So here's our promise to you today. We're not just talking about getting rid of symptoms. We're talking about why those symptoms show up in the first place, which is a really good thing to know. What they're asking you to change, and who you can become if you dare to listen.
Yeah. And our amazing guest today, Dr. Kelly McCann, is a board certified physician in internal medicine. But wait, there's more. And pediatrics. But wait, there's more. Also trained in functional, integrative, and environmental medicine. She's known for her expertise in mold illness, chronic infections, MCAS, and complex chronic conditions. Through the Spring Center and her upcoming transformational programs, she helps people heal at the deepest levels, integrating science, intuition, and spiritual psychology. She's hosted 3 worldwide virtual summits reaching over 100,000 people, and has a forthcoming book about how illness is not the enemy, but a portal to healing the whole self. If you've ever wondered, why is this happening to me? This episode might just flip that question into, what is this trying to awaken in me? I've seen so many people, and honestly myself at times, treat the body like a broken machine. Fix the part, move on. But what if the check engine light is actually your soul waving a flag? Chuck, have you ever had a health moment that forced you to rethink how you were living?
Well, I guess I got ahead of that one. I answered it already. Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I look back, and Dr. Kelly, I know we didn't talk about this before, 2 years before finding out last year that I got cancer, I was lucky enough to be healthy enough then to qualify to give a portion of my liver to my son to save his life before his 3rd birthday. And that was a wake-up call, but nowhere near as a wake-up call than getting diagnosed with the disease like cancer. I remember the potential guilt I was about to feel if I didn't qualify. Like, oh my goodness, all those beers I drank in college. Like, what did I do? Why did I just not go to parties? Why did I stop playing baseball? I never would have drank, but I'd be like, darn it, all these regrets, regrets, regrets. And that still wasn't enough. It was almost like I got approved. We went to the surgery and then like, oh, back to regular life and eating the same, drinking the same. And then I, got really, really busy and stopped taking care of myself. And my body was like, hey, you, all the symptoms I've been giving you, wake up. I think he needs the big C word because he won't do anything to change unless something scares him. And it did. It scared me. And I immediately started taking action.
Right. Well, good for you. Yeah, it is. I definitely have seen that, cancer has that impact, right? Oh my gosh, I'm looking at my mortality and I have too much life to live for. I think for the patient population that I see, these complex chronic illness patients, they just have a slow decline into suffering and debilitation and don't have that aha moment. Oh my gosh, I need to do something, right? So I think in many ways you're very blessed, Chuck, that that was how your messages showed up
Well,
because
Dr. Kelly,
they're undeniable, right?
I think there's actually even more of a linkage between me and your patients, believe it or not, because when I was graduating college, I found out I had Hashimoto's. Okay. And you know what they taught that my primary care physician told me? Here's a pill. You'll be fine. It's 1 out of 100,000 men, but whatever. It's 1 out of every 10,000 women. It's more common, but like rare for you. Like that made me feel better, right? Like, but here's a pill. Just come and check up on your levels every year. And did I not know at that point if there was functional medicine in primary care medicine combined, like your practice in a way, like I know that's not exact because I'm not a scientist, but or a
Yeah,
doctor, but
yeah.
if that was incorporated, man, I know for sure if I stopped eating gluten and dairy like I have, I never would have
Mhm.
got cancer. Never.
Probably not. Probably not.
100%
Yeah.
certainty. No one can convince me otherwise. And I know you're going to confirm it.
Well, I would definitely say your risk would be a lot less, right? For sure.
Not that the type of cancer that I got, right? Because it was the same spot.
Right.
Mm.
Well, we can talk more about that.
Okay.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda, who knows? This is how it showed up and this is how it needed to show up for you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm.
And I think that's the important thing is that we all have our unique physiology and psychology, and they are linked inside of ourselves. So,
Dr. Kelly, I just hope the person listening to this that has an autoimmune disease, right? And any disease, but an autoimmune disease that doesn't really show up as a major symptom in some of our bodies. Like I didn't have any symptoms. Okay. I just took a pill and I moved on with my life. I hope that's just that can be the wake up call for them instead of having it manifest into what it did for me. I just want them to relate to that because you don't need to go through 20 years later or 10 years later even more worse stuff. I didn't even know until I saw a functional nutritionist after getting diagnosed with cancer that one autoimmune disease gives you a 33.9% chance higher statistical chance of getting diagnosed with a second and a third, which is sounds like a terrible lifestyle to have. And all I had to do was stop creating inflammation in my body. Like it sounds pretty easy. Let me do it.
right. Sometimes it's a little bit more complicated. So we can talk a little bit more about Hashimoto's, Hashimoto's, and any autoimmune condition, any complex chronic illness. The way that I think about it is we have these exposures in our world. So there's this bucket we call it mold, and mold can cause allergies and autoimmune conditions. It can trigger neurological dysfunction. It does all sorts of things. And then we've got this huge bucket called environmental chemicals, pesticides and PCBs, flame retardants, phthalates, plastics, etc. This huge bucket of all these things that we're exposed to. And the numbers of chemicals in our environment today, there are hundreds and thousands of chemicals in our environment. It's disastrous. And we don't have a clue because they don't seemingly impact us. But if you look around and you know where to look, they're everywhere. Everyone drinks out of plastic water bottles. Everything is packaged in plastic. All of our clothes are plastic. Polyester, that's plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we wash it, dry it, then there's plastic in the dust, which we breathe. We can't get that plastic out of our bodies. And then there's all the infections. So the CDC has now recognized that there are 176,000 people annually who get diagnosed with Lyme disease in the United States. And that is probably a lowball diagnosis. And that's just Lyme disease. That's not counting all the other tick-related illnesses, viruses, Bartonella. Bartonella is called cat scratch fever for a reason, right? 70 to 80% of feral cats in the United States have Bartonella. Even domesticated cats have Bartonella. My cat had Bartonella. She was feral, but I didn't realize it and domesticated her. Scratched my husband, gave him Bartonella. Scratched my stepdaughter, gave her Bartonella. And Bartonella is much more severe than Lyme disease, but Lyme disease gets all the press. So these infections interact with our immune systems. And, a very simple analogy is to say, so here's your immune system and here's the infection, right? And if your immune system is more powerful than the infection, you're going to keep it in check. You might not see any symptoms. But if you get enough toxins and infections, all of a sudden your immune system is overwhelmed and you're going to have symptoms. And what's happening with an autoimmune condition is that your immune system is mistakenly perceiving your own tissues as foreign.
Mm-hmm.
What does it do? It makes antibodies and attacks your own tissues. So the question is, why does it do that? It does that because it perceives that they're foreign, oftentimes because there's a toxin or an infection attached to the tissues or bedded in the tissues. I had a woman, I put her on ivermectin for prophylaxis during COVID. Shh, don't tell the government. Her Hashimoto's went away.
What?
Yeah, went away. Her antibodies were in the thousands. And over time, as she took this for prevention, over the 2 to 3 years of COVID, her antibodies went away.
Wow. Disclaimer, we're not saying this will work for everybody.
It doesn't work for everybody, but it worked for her. Another patient, she had been eating tuna and sushi like 3 to 4 days a week for years. Her Hashimoto's was terrible. We started chelating her and removing the mercury. And I wasn't able to recover all of her thyroid function, but she went from, let's say, 3 grains of Armour thyroid, which is a massive dose, to 1.25 grains, which was a huge improvement in her function of her thyroid gland, even though she had had Hashimoto's for 30 years, simply by removing the mercury.
Well, Chuck, it really just emphasizes the point. As you said earlier, 2 years ago, you got a diagnosis from one doctor and you thought, I want to talk with someone else. And then you get some information from them. And then you thought, I'm going to talk to a different type of doctor. And then you get some different information from them. It is really, really important to, explore.
Diversify.
Yeah, explore, diversify. And you might be lucky enough to find somebody such as Dr. Kelly who has seen something like this before or has more experience in a particular area. One thing Dr. Kelly pointed out before, like she's talking about diseases and conditions I've never even heard of. And there must be thousands, if not tens of thousands of different things that can be happening to any person. No one in the world knows everything, right? Including Dr. Kelly, but she's the kind of person who has thought, well, I don't understand why this is happening, and the knowledge that I have up till now is not giving me answers. So some doctors may say, sorry, I don't know. But Dr. Kelly, on the other hand, has thought, I want to find the answer. And that's why when we listed off all of the different types of methodologies and research and information that she has learnt along the way, that gives her a much more rounder way to look at things. And it may not just be one thing. It might be a combination. Like maybe a cat scratched you, plus your you've got gluten allergies or something like that. And then you've got like a combo thing happening in your body, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very rare that it's just one thing. And, sometimes even when I tell stories, it's like, well, I'm going to tell you this sliver of the story, but actually the whole story is much more complicated than that. And yeah, I listen to patients come in and I'm trying to think, well, is it this? Is it this? What are the buckets, right? Is it EMF? Is it infection? Is it a toxin? Is it a genetic condition? Is it epigenetic? What's going on? Is it a nutritional deficiency? So there are all these different potential things that can be dysfunctional that are manifesting in those symptoms. And then, to go a little bit deeper in this conversation and circle back to some of the opening information that you shared. What if the susceptibility to those different buckets has to do with who we believe we are, how worthy we feel to be here on the planet, what our internal emotional, psychological, and spiritual state is, and the opportunity is that we get impacted by these things that we're exposed to when our bodies have that susceptibility because of who we think we are or who we don't think we are, right? And then what I've found is that the way that things present, like why did you have Hashimoto's? What is it about you and your way that you are in the world that manifested Hashimoto's? You could have gotten lupus. You could have gotten, had a knee injury. So what was it about this area of the body that you needed some feedback in?
Yeah, the root chakra.
Right? Throat chakra. And so for a lot of women, it's often that they don't feel like they have a voice. They don't speak their truth. There's a disconnection between their head and their heart. And, so there's an opportunity for reflection. It's like, are you really speaking your truth?
Hmm.
Is there a way that you are silencing yourself or cutting off that part of you?
I wouldn't think anybody in my life would say that I'm silencing myself. It'd probably be quite the opposite. So I wonder, what do you find is common for men?
Well, you're right. There aren't a lot of men that have that. And here's where it's really important to tap into your own intuition and to contemplate, like, what does speaking my truth really mean for me? Or is there another analogy that might come up that resonates more with you? Like, I'm not your body. I'm not the map of your body. Each person has their own unique map. And yet there's a lot of information from people who have been studying chakras and traditional Chinese medicine for thousands of years that there is a map of the body, right? And there is energy in the organs. Kidney qi, for example, and I'm really not a specialist in traditional Chinese medicine, but that is life force energy. Why is that? The kidneys are where the adrenal glands sit. If our adrenal glands don't work, we are dead, right? If you get an autoimmune condition that attacks your adrenal glands called Addison's disease, like if you don't have replacement for that, you will die. If you don't have replacement for thyroid, you're going to feel crappy, but you won't die, right? So that would just be an offering. And I think that goes for anyone listening too. It's like, what is this trying to get you to pay attention to?
Yeah. And one of the sentences that really stood out for me when I was doing some research and checking your website and some of your background, the phrase was illness as a portal to purpose. Do you mind going a little bit deeper on that and explaining what that means to people that are hearing this for the first time?
I feel that our purpose on the planet is to be the most authentic versions of ourselves. And I don't know, have either of you ever read The Four Agreements?
Summarize.
Don Miguel Ruiz. Beautiful little story, collection of stories. But one of the things that he talks about in there is that we're all born whole humans. And if you ever look at like a newborn or a young toddler, they are pure joy. They're so happy to be alive. And sure, yeah, they get upset when they're hungry or they're tired or they fall down and bump their knee. But they pop right back up and they are just so alive. And then over time, they're taught, even with the most well-intentioned, most loving parents, they're taught, this is how you need to be. This is not who you should be. This is not okay. You're not okay. And a lot of that is what we take on ourselves, right? Especially when you have well-meaning parents who want to raise you to be the best versions of yourself. We still have stuff. We still have misperceptions about who we are and what it means to get love, as and then of course many people who grow up who are neglected or who are abused, they're going to have a whole host of beliefs about themselves. And I almost see it like we coming as these beings of light, and we always have that connection to our soul's purpose, whatever term you want to use, right? You want to call it God, you want to call it Jesus, you want to call it soul, universe, whatever. And then all of these ideas and beliefs that we have about ourselves cover up who we really are. And we think that that's us. And that may be ego, that may be beliefs. Life isn't safe. I'm not safe to be in my body. It's not okay to be me. I'm ashamed. I feel guilty, anything like that. And what happens then is those beliefs that we hold that disconnect us from our spirit, we have to unlearn them. And the way that we do that is through our physical bodies and through our experiences and symptoms. And the opportunity is to say, hey, what could this be trying to tell me? How can my body be communicating to me? A simple example might be if you have blockage in your heart, how are you not feeding yourself? How are you not loving yourself? How are you thinking that you don't deserve love and you're stopping the flow of love? It's not okay to show your emotions. I mean, this is a typical thing that men learn. Showing your emotions is not okay, right? Boys don't cry. Big men don't cry. And so what do men do? I can't show my emotions. I can't feel my emotions. And they literally cut themselves off and they block their hearts. Women don't tend to have that as much, but some of them do. I have a woman in my practice, and she came around the time she was perimenopausal, and she was like a Amazon goddess. She worked out every day, and she was a perfectionist, and she was the dutiful patient. And we found out that she had a coronary calcium score in the 90th percentile for her age. It's like, what? What the heck is going on, right? Why is this beautiful woman who eats perfectly and takes all of her supplements and does all of her exercises, how is it possible that she has coronary artery disease in her early 50s? She looks like she would be in her 80s with these kind of blood vessels.
Wow.
She was molested by her older brothers.
Ouch.
And in turn molested her younger siblings. And she was so filled with shame about that, and so filled with guilt about that she blocked off her heart. And we explored that.
Okay.
And we worked on detox, and we worked on self-love, and we worked on really learning how to love herself and then be open to the possibility of sharing that love with a partner. And now she's happily with a partner, spends more time like being feminine. She's very masculine, um, tough cookie. And now she like wears pretty dresses, and not that she always looked beautiful before, but there's a softness to her that she didn't have before, and a real tenderness that she has that she didn't have before, both for herself and for her partner.
In her.
And her arteries are declining in their calcification.
Wow. Which would it be accurate to say that medicine would say that's not possible? Without medicine?
Yeah, probably medicine would say that's not possible.
I don't want to interject because you were on a roll, but I have to imagine the viewers are thinking the same thing I am, that it sounds to me that you're making a connection to some trauma that people are having with that they would normally be prescribed a therapist for. And if we stick down that path, because you touched on a few, but if we stick down that path, if what you're saying is, and I believe it to be true, by the way, okay? So I am not a skeptic. I just want to preface that. I'm a little biased here, but I also want everyone to know that your body has always healed itself. It just needs to be in the right place to heal itself. So what she's saying isn't woo woo. It's for real. What's interesting to me, and I'm trying to figure out from a consumer, from a person who has insurance, like we don't want to be sick. We don't want to deal with this stuff, but we seek help and we have insurance. So we go to the place that we're supposed to go to, and they say, go to a therapist. And the therapist doesn't believe or is trained in any of these things. But if it's so prevalently true, help me understand the science behind why those professionals can't then connect the dots with what you're saying so that people can get the real help, because they're getting antidepressants, they're getting like maybe pills to give them whatever experience they're having. So what's going on here? Where's the disconnect?
Well, I mean, I think that this is cutting edge, right? This is bleeding edge. So when you think about conventional medicine, their job is to give you a label. They call it a diagnosis, right? So I was taught in medical school, take a history, do a physical exam, come up with your differential diagnosis. That means, what is the list of possible labels that this patient has? And then you order the labs to figure out what is the label. That's it. And then once you know the label, you know what to do. Send them for surgery or give them this medication. That's it. That's conventional medicine. Functional medicine says, we want to know the root cause. So sure, we care about your label a little bit, like, it's autoimmune, it's Hashimoto's, it's thyroid cancer, it's Crohn's, it's iron deficiency anemia. And then we want to know why. Okay, what are the whys? We look at those root cause. Those are those buckets that I was talking about, right? So functional medicine is a step beyond, where it sees, okay, if you live on a golf course and you're exposed to pesticides and herbicides and God knows what else, and you get some sort of cancer, autoimmune condition, it may be because of the toxic burden that you're exposed to. Or if you're exposed to mold and you get brain fog and chronic fatigue and, an autoimmune condition, that may be the mold. Those are the root causes. And the idea with functional medicine is we clean up the root causes and stuff gets better.
Mm.
And what I'm saying is, the root of the root cause is our disconnect from ourselves, or disconnect from our purpose. My purpose on the planet is to be a healer, not just a doctor. My purpose on the planet is to have these deep conversations, right? Ever since I was a little girl, I've been fascinated by spirituality and how the mind and the body were connected. I didn't know it would end up here, but this is where I'm supposed to be. And so these conversations are fresh and new. And, you can go to a therapist and they're going to talk about your feelings and your thoughts and maybe even your spirit, but they don't cross the bridge into talking about your body. And your body is the vehicle through which your intuition and your soul is speaking to you. So you can't divorce the body from the emotions and the thoughts and the spirit. That's the beautiful thing, is like, we're all connected. But we think when you have a physical problem, you go to a doctor. When you have an emotional or mental problem, you go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist. When you have a spiritual problem, you go to your minister, your guru, your, religious leader. No, it doesn't work that way. We're like this. We're all interconnected.
Mm-hmm. So
And the problem with that is most of those people don't communicate with each other, because, as you said before, it's never usually one thing that a person is going through. It might be some emotional things happening, and then maybe one of the results of that is some tightness in the body, some injury, pain, and so on. Like, there might be a combination of things. So they'll go to the doctor to address the pain. They'll go to a psychologist to talk about the emotion, and go to church, as you said, for the spiritual side. But none of those people are talking with each other, which means they're only looking at you from their perspective as well. And I think one thing that you have really tapped into is being a person that may not be the deepest expert on any one of those things, but you understand all of them and that they all play a part together. So it's important to look at the person holistically. And then the other thing that just came to mind is you may go to your spiritual healer, to your psychologist, to your doctor, but you're never actually going to yourself. You're never asking yourself, what about me? And you mentioned this at the very, very beginning today when we started talking, that some people cannot be helped if they're not willing to open that door first. And then everything else tends to cascade and unfold from that. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, if you only want to believe that physical symptoms are exclusively physical symptoms and there's no connection between the mind and the body, good luck with that. I mean, it's really kind of silly. We know that what we think impacts how we feel. When your favorite song comes on the radio, what do you feel? Right? You feel like dancing, you feel like singing, like life is great again, even if you felt kind of crappy before. We can't separate ourselves. And yeah, I'm not an expert. I'm not a therapist. And what I'm doing is having conversations with patients and opening up the door and offering the possibilities and asking or encouraging a reframe of how they're thinking about things, and then saying, okay, well, go read this book, go see this therapist, go talk to this person. I don't have all the answers, but here's some things that you may want to consider. And it's also really interesting how the timing of everything. So I remember I had a woman who came to see me, and she was in her mid-40s, wasn't menstruating, had a whole host of food sensitivities, and she was really irritable all the time. She was so worried about how her anger and irritability was going to impact her young daughter. She loved her daughter very much, but she couldn't help. She was just so irritated all the time, and had no sense of joy. She couldn't even conceive of joy. And we worked for 18 months to stabilize her hormones and to work on her diet and to really get her to the point where she had enough bandwidth. She felt better physically enough that I could say, okay, you're ready. Here we go.
So you're
And
smart
now,
starting it off.
well, people have to be ready when they're ready. And when people feel like crap all the time, oftentimes they don't have the bandwidth to have these deeper conversations, and that's okay. But now she has so much joy. I saw her a couple weeks ago, like glowing, absolutely glowing, unrecognizable from the person that she came in as. And she's studying to be a medical intuitive, right? And there was some horrific trauma in her past that she didn't remember. And over the course of our conversations and over the course of her own work, I gave her an assignment, and she was the most dutiful student. She took this book, turned it into a workbook, and she would just go and write and journal and identify beliefs that she had about herself that were not true. She would clear them. She would find another belief. She would clear it. She would find another belief. She would go through stacks and stacks and stacks of notebooks. Like, she did the work, and it paid off, and it paid off big time. She's a different person.
Yeah. More importantly, she's a happy person.
She's a happy person. She is so in love with life and so filled with joy, when joy was completely absent in her life a number of years ago. Right? So talk about hope, talk about the possibility of, I don't like to say you get your life back, because who you were before is not who you're supposed to be. That's why you're going through this. And people who have the deepest, most darkest struggles, I believe they're the ones who have said, okay, I'm coming in and I'm learning this lesson, and I really want to get it. I want to nail it this time. I want to be my authentic self, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. And so the universe says, okay, here it is, here it comes. And they have a super hard existence so that they can do, it's kind of like you're talking about, Chuck. You had to change your life, right? If the heat is so hot in the kitchen, you have to do something. And that's what I see in complex chronic illness.
Sad
That's the
part.
message.
Yeah, the sad part is we all know there's way more than there are way more negative stories than there are positive stories of folks that, to keep it woo woo, they came down here to have an experience. The universe gave them that experience. They did nothing with it, and they're going to recycle and do it all over again. They're they're gonna keep going through it until they find someone like you or this amazing podcast, and then the light bulb goes off, and they're like, I'm supposed to do this. All right, let me get through this because actually this is part of the journey. And yeah, so one of the biggest questions that just came to my mind now, and you kind of answered it. What if I'm listening to this and I'm like, okay, sounds good, guys. Like, sure, whatever. Like, but I'm really sick and I'm not really feeling very well. I thought you said you're going to give me some like ways to overcome up symptoms. What do you suggest if they feel like crap, they have autoimmune, whatever it is, or their parents do, or someone they love does? What can they do tomorrow or right now that would help them gradually get to that step? Because with your patient that was 30 and had a young daughter, it took her, you didn't just
Yeah, it took her a long time.
they like if she saw this, she'd be like, nope, because 18 months is what you did before you kind of went woo woo with her, right? So, like,
Right.
what do you recommend first?
Well, if they've made it this far in the podcast, they might be further along and more ready to hear what I have to say. Because if they weren't ready, they wouldn't listen, So I think the first step is to pay attention to how you think about your body. Is your body against you? Do you have fights with your body? Do you feel like, gosh darn it, body, I want to do this. I want to go like hang out with my friends, and you're too tired and I'm pissed. I'm pissed that you are not letting me live my life the way that I want, right? So there's this real tug of war that we hear, and we have language about it. Like, I wanted to do this and my body wouldn't let me. Okay. All right. So what's the reframe? Is it that your body is asking for something and you are ignoring it? You are not honoring it. And is there a way that you can listen with love and compassion to what it is that your body is requesting?
If you were listening to this and you were like, I don't think I don't know. Let me give you an example of me. Oddly, just out of nowhere, started getting allergic to beer right about a year before I gave my transplant to my son. And I'm like talking to my friends, we just Miller Lights, whatever. Like, and I'm not a terrible drinker. Wasn't even then. I would just be kind of a weekend partier. And they're like, oh, so you don't drink beer anymore? I'm like, I can't. I don't know why. Like, you want me to be hanging out with you, sneezing on you all the time? Because that's what happens. Well, on my anniversary, when this was happening, Leah and I went into a brewery and I walked in and I couldn't stay in there because I was sneezing. It was that like got to the point where I'm like, I guess I'm getting old because I went to go see an allergist and then, get the shots and they're like, yeah, you're allergic to barley and weed and cats and dogs. And I'm like, what? Where does that come from? They had like just a typical doctor. I guess that's just you getting old. So what am I going to do? Like, oh, here's a pill, surprise. And if the pill don't work, you're going to get a shot. So just don't accept the pills. Don't accept the cover up of what those symptoms are, because I took the pills. I took 2 allergy pills a day for who knows how long, 5 years. And do you think I still drink some beer so often? Yeah, I was just like, no big deal. Like because I was masking it, and I'm like, maybe it's not really my body telling me anything. Maybe it's just like me getting old. I'm believing all these lies that I'm somewhat kind of hearing and not paying attention to my body. And you want to know what happened when I got rid of wheat and I got rid of absolutely not drinking any beer and absolutely not having any dairy because I did the food sensitivity test, yada, yada, yada. You want to know what happened? The biggest thing, no more allergy pills.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, went away.
And my wife caught me. She caught me, and maybe even like in the early podcast episodes where I'm like, yeah, I didn't really have any symptoms when I was, prior to. She's like, are you kidding me? You were taking 2 allergy pills a day. So it's interesting how like you could feel like crap, but you're maybe watching this right now And like me, you're taking something like maybe a acidic medicine, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Taking
Yeah.
an
Reflux
acid
medicine.
because you're popping them purple pills every day. Come on, guys. Like, no, stop it. Tums, stop it. I mean, that's masking the body telling you there's something wrong. So, all right, we got that aha moment for them. Then what? I mean, I'd like to say go see a functional doctor, but that's like speaking Spanish to people who've never even taken a Spanish class.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would say go see a functional medicine doctor, of course, or naturopath or, something like that. But, there's a lot more work that you can do. All right. Say you were listening to this podcast a couple years ago and you're like, okay, maybe my body's trying to tell me something that weed is not so good for me. I should not be drinking beer and dairy. And yeah, maybe the trajectory would be different. And then the other question is, okay, so once you did that, what triggered the allergies in the first place? So then we keep asking, what triggered that? What triggered that? Why is that? So you keep going down the rabbit hole and trying to figure out what's the root of that? What's the root of that? Right. And one of my favorite books that I will share with some patients is by a woman named Amy B. Scher. She wrote a book called How to Heal Yourself When No One Else Can. Love Amy Scher. She's amazing. She had Lyme disease and she had a good life. She loves her family, all that stuff. And then she got Lyme disease and she did all the things, saw all the specialists, and then she still wasn't better. So she's like, okay, I'm going to go to India and do this stem cell thing. And so she goes to India and she, is at this program for 9 weeks. And she goes to her exit interview because she's done and she's better. She's feeling much better. And the way that I remember the story is the woman at the place says, well, you haven't dealt with any of your stuff. And she was like, what are you talking about? I feel great. She comes back to the United States and she goes back and does exactly what she had been doing before. Working too hard, self-sacrifice, not really taking care of herself, taking care of everybody else, give, 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 give. She was a super giver. And she fell apart again. And she was like, gosh darn it. The woman was right. What did she mean? What do I have to do? And so she taught herself how to muscle test. She started reading all these books about energy medicine, kind of figured out her own way through. And now she too is a, healer, energy healer. She's written numerous books after that one, but I love that one because you can use it almost as a workbook and start to identify what are the thoughts, what are the beliefs, where do they come from, where are they in your body, and different techniques of how to clear them, different kind of tapping techniques. But what the opportunity is to start to really reconnect with your intuition. We all have a sense of knowing inside of ourselves and we ignore it a lot of the time, right? Just like you ignored that beer doesn't make me feel so good. I'm just gonna pop a pill. Your body's like, hey, Chuck, stop, right? Stop.
Seriously. But I mean, like, just think about all the things that exist in the grocery store that aren't food. They're
Gosh.
meant to help you keep buying that food. I mentioned the antacids, but like, there's so many things that they're like, oh, you feel like crap, here you go.
Right.
That we like, there's a pill for it, so I'm good. I don't ever have
Mm,
to change the way I'm doing. I live in my life, and then they don't fulfill their purpose.
mm,
Right. Which is the really, really sad thing. It's like, why wouldn't you want to be the most authentic version of yourself here on the planet and do what it is that you're supposed to do? I
mm,
have this patient who he was taught, you're not okay. You are not okay. You're too gentle, you're too soft. You need to be a man. You need to take control. You need to do think, 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 think. He has a now debilitating autoimmune inflammatory condition and it breaks my heart. And I know he's trying and I know he's like has a counselor and is doing some internal work, but like that's the problem and it needs to be addressed and you can't address it with your mind alone, right? This is like life is an embodiment. So we have to address it, mind, body, spirit, beliefs, like the whole coherence of the whole body, the whole being has to be in coherence. And if part of us is still attached to the old story, we can't fully make that shift.
Yeah.
Dr. Kelly, what do you feel or think about plant medicine?
It's a good question. I haven't experienced it yet myself. I think that for some people, it helps get the mind out of the way, to be able to have that kind of coherence experience. I also remember, did you guys ever watch the movie Altered States, William Hurt? I watched that as a teenager. So freaking scary to me. I don't know, maybe it was because I was in a moldy basement, and I was like hallucinating in my moldy basement. But the fact that he did these, he was in a deprivation tank, right? And he eventually became a monkey. My God. So my take on that was, altered states are not higher states. I'm not sure. So, I have a little skepticism, but whatever it takes, right? I think that um, it's not it's not my path. It's the individual's path that they need to take. I don't know. That's where tuning into your intuition is so important. I have patients who tune in and they're like, okay, I'm going to do this diet. I'm going to do this fasting thing. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do this program. Great. If that's what you feel in your heart and your intuition is what is on your trajectory, fantastic.
Yeah.
Most people's health journey is a combination of all different sorts of things. It's not just the supplements, it's the books that you read, it's the things that really resonate with you. Follow your intuition about what you're attracted to, and you will find the path that you need to be on.
I have found a lot of people will look for an easy step to begin. So that, for example, someone maybe is carrying a little bit of extra weight. Now, with that, there's a whole host of reasons why someone is holding extra weight or has extra body fat, right? It's not just because of eating too much pizza. So they think, okay, what's the first easiest thing I can do? All right, I'm maybe going to cut out carbs. Okay, so then they go for a few days or a couple of weeks cutting out carbs. They see some results there. It has not addressed any of the emotional reasons why they enjoy eating pizza. And I think one of the things you highlighted before is that looking at those things holistically, but also at the same time to look at, what part does this play in the big picture, and what part does this play, and what can I do about this? What can I do about this? Like, you need to take a comprehensive approach to that. You may get some small wins. Sometimes a small win gives people that sense of hope and progress. So they think, okay, I've got a little bit of progress by cutting out carbs. So what's the next thing I can do? And hopefully they then start to address the other issues as well, and they can keep moving forward. But sometimes they take a small step, it's too difficult, or they don't get the expected result, and then they go back again and tend to regress back to where they were. There was one thing you mentioned before. We have talked about the things you put into your body. We have talked about the things that we're carrying in our mind from the past. You touched on something called environmental medicine, and you talked about mold, right? Everyone in the world has seen mold growing in their shower, and get a little bit of bleach and get rid of that, and then don't need to think about it. And actually, I live in a very humid part of China here. It's like monsoonal during summer, months and months and months. So there's always mold along the base of the walls and places like that. What is that doing potentially to our health, and what can we do about it?
Good question. Not all molds produce mold toxins. So you can have an allergy to mold. You can have a sensitivity to mold. Those are not quite the same thing. Like if you have an allergy, you go to an allergist, they do allergy testing. They will say, okay, you have an IgE allergy and you can take here's your antihistamine, or here's your shots for those things. If you have a sensitivity, the allergist isn't going to find anything. And then there's molds that produce mold toxins. And those mold toxins are metabolites. So the toxins themselves are not alive, and they're very difficult to break down. And essentially, these molds grow in moist, water damaged areas, but they may not be in the soil. They may not be in an area where you are, right? There may be. I mean, here in California, I have a couple of theories, but I think perhaps I live in Orange County, right? So this used to be orange groves. They probably sprayed antifungals on the orange groves at some point. And so there's antifungals that have self-selected for more toxic molds in the soil. And then what happens is they go where the fuel and the food is. They need water, they need paper, and we build with wood and paper. That's sheetrock, that's just pressed paper, right? And they can grow on dust, and so they get into the slabs, excuse me, and they start to grow. And humans and the animals who live in homes where there's a mold war going on are the innocent bystanders of these mold wars, where they're fighting each other for resources, and their ammunition are the mold toxins. And then some people, depending upon their genetic susceptibility, a variety of different things, their total toxic burden, understanding of themselves and the world, their beliefs, their connection to themselves, they can be susceptible to these illnesses and to these toxins or not. So oftentimes in a family, some people will be horribly sick and some people won't. Some people will have different symptoms, and the symptom list is a mile long: fatigue, brain fog, autoimmune conditions, joint pain, stabbing pains, gastrointestinal symptoms, lots of food sensitivities and food allergies, especially to carbs and wheat. So who knows? Chuck, sorry. Dysautonomias, autonomic nervous system dysfunction, mast cell activation syndrome. There can be so many different things that people get really, really sick from. Again, it's multifactorial. So say you grow up on the East Coast, you have Lyme disease, but your immune system is keeping it in check. And now all of a sudden you move into a moldy apartment or a moldy house, and now you get super sick. Your immune system gets suppressed. The Lyme disease rears its ugly head, and now you've got double or triple the amount of symptoms. You've got symptoms in every system of the body, and you're like, you go to your doctor and you're like, okay, doc, I got fatigue and brain fog and palpitations and I can't eat anything anymore. And I've got diarrhea and constipation. And I think I might have IBS, and oh yeah, it hurts when I pee, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm anxious and I don't know why. And I'm gaining all this weight and I don't know why. Yeah, that's mold.
And you know what they tell you? Because that happened to me in college. This is literally what they said to me. You didn't book an appointment for all of this. It's like, what? You said, is there anything else wrong? And I gave you everything. So I'm sorry I didn't book our session with you. Did I need to know that up the front? Yeah.
They don't know how to they don't know how to handle it. They just don't. They're not built for that. Right. But yeah, so you have all these potential symptoms in a moldy house or mold exposure. And then there's the house that's sick. And then there's the people and the animals that are sick in the moldy house. And then you have to be able to find the professionals to deal with the mold in the house and hopefully fix that up, identify it, find the sources and clean it up. And then you have to have the doctors help the patients and the people with the mold exposures.
Dr. Kelly.
Chuck, I have a very confronting story about mold. A close family member many years ago was doing multi-level marketing. So selling supplements, and amongst these supplements was a drink. And the drink came in like a white plastic bottle. And this guy, over time, he would keep using this white plastic bottle. And the inside of it had all of this black mold growing inside it. And one time, and he would just keep reusing it, like for months and months. And I spotted it and I said, what the hell is going on here? And he said, no, this is good for my immune system because it's building up my immunity to the bacteria or the mold. And I said, where did you learn that? And he said, have you ever seen the movie War of the Worlds? And this is a movie from back in 1970s or 80s. And it was redone with Tom Cruise many years later. So in the movie War of the Worlds, the aliens come to Earth, they start destroying the shit out of humanity for quite a while. And then one day they all just stopped and died. And why did the aliens die? Because they had come to Earth, but they'd never been exposed to the bacteria on Earth before. So they had no immunity to it. So it proved the point that humans over time, we build up an immunity to the bacteria that exists in our environment. So this family member had this strong belief that expose yourself to all of these things makes you strong and immune against them. Now, sadly, this family member ended up having stage 4 brain cancer and died like 18 months later. I smile about it because that's my way of dealing with it. It's a close family member. But this is some of the information. Like, this is not even information that they're reading on the internet. This is like from a goddamn Hollywood movie that people are gathering information from and having these strong beliefs. So just in saying that, like, what crazy beliefs did people come to you with? And you're like, where did that come from? And how do you help them to dispel that or work through those?
Wow.
Yeah, gosh, I'm so sorry. That's a terrible story. Yeah, because not only who knows what was actually in the bottle, but he was drinking plastic every day. And the studies on reusing plastic water bottles is pretty horrific. So it's really interesting that you ask that. And I think that what I find most of the time is that the patients who come to see me have been gaslit, meaning they go to a doctor and they tell their story, and the doctor says, your labs are fine. There's nothing wrong with you. I think you need to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. They're having real symptoms. And so one of the things that I kind of promised myself was that when somebody comes in to see me, I'm going to believe them. I have to believe that they believe what they're saying. They believe what they're experiencing. And I will often say, I can't always understand and I can't always explain why I think you're having the symptoms that you're having, but it doesn't make them not real. Now, with your family member, maybe his belief was a symptom that there was a brain tumor and that his cognitive functioning was off because of the brain tumor.
Mm.
And that could have been a clue to say, hey, you know what, buddy, I love you, but you're not really making a lot of sense right now. And maybe we need to do a brain scan. And maybe they would have found it sooner. I've had patients who have come in and I smell smoke. And I know it's not smoky, but I smell the smell. And I've recognized that we got to do an MRI. Sure enough, meningioma. Thankfully, a meningioma is not. It's not dangerous, other than it grows in size and but it's not a brain tumor that you die from. But it just really offers us the opportunity to reframe how we might think about what he was believing or something. And I think that if I do come across somebody who feels really strongly that they believe something, I find this with parasites a lot. It's like they have this belief about parasites, right? I had this one gentleman, when he first came to see me, he was like really strong and athletic and handsome. And then he got this idea in his head that he had parasites in his gut, and he started doing coffee enemas, 4, 5, 6 coffee enemas a day. And he got this like parasite zapper thing that he would attach to his stomach, and he would try and zap and kill the parasites. And I saw him, I don't know, 6 months, a year later, and he had lost like 40 pounds. He looked gray. He smelled terrible. Like something was really, really sick. Um, and I couldn't get through to him. I could not help him understand that he was damaging himself. And yeah, it was very sad and traumatic.
Yeah.
I took care of his girlfriend too, and she ended up leaving him. It was very, very sad. So sometimes we can help people and sometimes we can't.
And I've found with men as well. So this family member is obviously a guy, and even myself, as you said, as you pointed out earlier, guys tend to keep things inside. If we feel there's something not quite right, she'll be right, mate. That's what we say in Australia. She'll be right, mate. Don't worry about it. We'll get over it. And actually, it was like a few months later, I saw the family member, and he was walking around the house with I think it was his right arm in a sling, but he was using like a necktie as a sling. Like he hadn't even gone to the pharmacy to buy a proper sling. He was just using a necktie in his hands like this. What's going on? He said, "Oh, my right arm seems to be a little bit numb. It doesn't have much movement, but she'll be right, mate." And like, you know, how many times how many things do people have to experience before the red lights are so bright they say, maybe I should go see a doctor to check out what's going on? And I think, as you said, if he had identified much earlier, by the time he had discovered what was going on, it was stage 4. That means before that there was stage 3 and 2 and 1, and then even maybe some inflammation or something before that. Who knows how long before, but at the point when maybe it was 6 months earlier, if he felt something was not quite right and had an opportunity to just go do a scan or check something out, probably would have been a completely different outcome. And seeing him go through that and the altered mind state of not, it was actually his wife that had to drive him to the hospital because he had collapsed from dizziness. That it got to that point. And then obviously when he went in and did the scans and got the diagnosis, like, okay, you've got X number of months to live. And this is something really, really bizarre. The doctor told him, according to your age, the stage 4, and the data that we have, you have 15 months to live. That's the average. So you know what he did? He went home and marked on his calendar 15 months later. Guess what day he died? I'm not kidding you. To the day.
Yeah.
On that day, he was counting it down. On that day, he had, I don't know, convinced himself, marked it on the calendar, and there was a cross the day before. And then on the day, he'd gone to the bathroom and collapsed and never came out of it, and gone to hospital and passed away.
You know what that shows or tells me too, Ed? It's evidence that what you believe to be true is true.
Yeah,
Your
to
mind is
that,
a lot more
yeah,
powerful
to that,
than you think.
yeah, to that degree is unbelievable. How do you
Wow.
explain that, Dr. Kelly?
Well, I mean, that is the power of the mind, right? So we become what we think. We manifest what we tell ourselves. So your story of your family member is the perfect polar, the mirror opposite of what my message is, which is you have the power to heal your life, to heal your symptoms, to recover if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to say, that doesn't feel quite right. I'm going to pay attention to that. Right. And, the way illness manifests for men and the way that illness manifests for women are a little bit different because of the way that we enculturate men and enculturate women. Women often are taught, do for everybody else, take care of everybody else, like self-sacrifice. And so their symptoms represent that. And men have, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. Like denial, denial, denial is, and don't show your emotions and don't feel, and, you can't like actually be yourself. Right. So men have symptoms and illnesses that come from that belief pattern. And yeah, of course, there's crossover and there's other things. And I'm so curious to like check in with you, Chuck, after a month or so and see what aha moments you've had. But we have that opportunity every single day to check in and say, what's really going on with me? What's going on with my heart? What do I feel emotionally? What do I feel physically? What are my thoughts? Where am I? Who am I? Am I really showing up the way that I want to be showing up? Is my life joyful, or am I just like drudging through, right? Show up to work, hate it, whatever. You don't have to do that. We think we're trapped. We're never trapped. We always have choice.
It's almost as if I met you last year when I got the big C diagnosis, because I didn't just get rid of gluten and dairy and see a functional doctor. I worked on all of this. And that's actually the profound stuff that Ed and I were talking about that made us start this podcast, because we were like, oh man, this is some deep stuff, man. We got to put it up there for people, right, Ed? So the list, in case the viewers are like, oh, this guy's kind of like me. Yes, I saw a functional doctor. Yes, I stopped eating gluten and dairy. That's just, it's my specific need or thing that helped me, right? And I had seen my body gave me results and immediate feedback, but I also knew that this needed to be worked on too, and my heart. And I'm in the process of right now. We had a guest. He's, we're going to promote you, but we had a guest on the podcast a couple weeks back, top performing coach. Ed and I are now working with him, and he's dealing with a lot of these same things right now. It's specifically about loving yourself and how would love respond. That's this process, which is going to be a whole year. This process is going to help us go deep with exactly what you're talking about there. Somewhat, not specifically what you're talking about, but I also immediately did Reiki. So I became a Reiki Master Level 1. So yeah, while also the whole time thinking this was woo-woo, right? Just like, all right, what is this? I get it. I believe in the energy flow. Everything is energy. But the more and more and more the time goes by, I just can't deny the evidence. So I went down the path after number 2. So a little bit of it wasn't completely taken out. And here's the war scars, by the way. So they had to go all the way over to the lymph nodes here. So they had like one little small lymph node they didn't get out. So it's like, yeah, I got it twice. It's like the dramatic way of saying it. It's the same thing. They just didn't get it all out. So I had to go back again. But the fear of that, getting the blood work back and being like, oh my God, it's back. I laugh now because it's easy to laugh. But man, I like each time you're faced with your mortality, and it's scary. And I was done with the fear of dying. That makes sense? And that was immediately when I was like, okay, I'm doing ayahuasca. I need to
So what was your experience?
It was amazing. There's not one person that will go do ayahuasca that will not benefit off of the work with you afterwards. Trust me, because they are wide open. And the door has been opened, and it's continually opening, and you just see the world for not what it is, because it's an oversimplification, but you see life differently through a different lens. You have and the work doesn't just end on that weekend. Like, it's consistent work with talking and communicating and reading books, and some of the books that you mentioned there would be perfect for that. So tap into that community, because they would benefit from working with you, because they're all going through. I'm included. Everyone was looking for healing, and there were some people there that had done it like 11 times. I wish Carrie could be here. She's one of our co-hosts. I met her that weekend at my ayahuasca ceremony, and she blew my mind with like all the things she was saying. And I said, I got this podcast. Could you come and be a guest? And like, we've just loved her so much. She just keeps coming back
Oh, sweet.
to be like a co-host with us. You two would hit it off. We have to have another episode where she could make it.
Yeah,
Can you
absolutely.
imagine? Can you imagine the conversations that Carrie would be having right now? Like, woo,
Dude, yeah, yeah. Chuck and I could just sit back and just watch
yeah.
the sparks fly. Awesome. Hey, Chuck, you actually touched on something there, which is I'd like to ask Dr. Kelly about, is community. Kelly, what part does community and connection play in people firstly breaking through those walls or being able to open those doors, but thereafter the healing process? Obviously, they come to you. You're an extremely connecting person, so they must have a wonderful time when they have their opportunity to talk with you. But when they go back to their lives, their work, their bosses who don't care about them, what suggestions or how do they work through that?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to find your own community. You have to go out and look for those people with whom you resonate if they're not in your network right now, because if you find yourself that you want to operate at a different vibration. You have to change the people who are around you so that you're surrounded by people who are operating on a different vibration where you want to be. And there are communities out there. I mean, they might be in a church, they might be in some sort of spiritual community.
We probably need to start a community here with because everyone watching this, if they especially gotten this far, they're on the same wavelength with everybody else that's gotten this far.
Right? Yeah, no, it's true. So, I mean, for some people who I have patients who have gone through addiction and they find their community in AA or whatever, similar type recovery is resonating with them. And then, even in those communities, there are still people that are like stuck in victim and they're trying to get out. So you, again, it's really about like what feels like home. I mean, I think that the more that we can tap into that connection with ourselves, the easier it is to recognize it when you resonate with somebody else. And along those lines, I'll do a little self plug. So I am starting an online program called the Unforgetting Project. And the idea is that we need to forget all that crap, all those beliefs, all those things that we took on when we were little kids that are not true about ourselves. We need to unforget them. We need to unforget who we really are, right? So I'm offering that at the beginning of January, starting in January, and the website is unforgettingproject.com. It's just a wait list right now, but I intend to do a membership after that. And I had started writing a book. I've had to pause that book, but some of the patients who will be in that book are going to be in that program with me, kind of helping. It's also, we're going to be doing not just lecture, it's experiential. So some trio work where one person might be the counselor, one person might be the client, one person might be the neutral observer, or to practice different conversations and different skills of, how to listen to your heart, how to be really present with somebody else, how to map out your own body and figure out what your symptoms mean, things like that. And then there'll be a community part that you can join that.
I like that. Is that a 1 day, 2 hour
Oh,
course?
sorry. It is a 9-week transformational course. It's
Okay.
going to happen on Fridays from 11 to 1 on Pacific time. And so it'll be 9 weeks with me, 2 hours live. And then people can watch the recordings if they can't make it.
Awesome. And we will add the links for sign up into the description of the show as well on both our audio and our YouTube channels. And Dr. Kelly, through your summits and your podcast, you have reached hundreds of thousands of people. What sentiment are you noticing? What information and answers are people hungry for in 2025, 2026?
They're hungry for hope. They want hope. They want to believe that they can get better. I think a lot of people feel separated from themselves, separated from each other, separated from community.
So, Dr. Kelly, how can people learn more about you? And you have a program that's coming up that we'd love for the listeners to hear about.
Yes, thank you, Chuck. It's called the Unforgetting Project, and it took me a long time to come up with that name. But the idea is that we come into this world and we, as I explained, we have these beliefs that we hold about ourselves that prevent us from really knowing who we truly are. And so we need to get rid of them. We need to unforget and get rid of those things. And I liked it better than remembering, because remembering is like, I got to pick up eggs at the store. But this is something that we came in with and we have forgotten, and we need to unforget. It's a 9-week transformational course program, 2 hours every Friday with me and some of my women and people who have gone through my, not that, I mean, this is the inaugural course, but other people who have been patients. And so they've walked this walk with me. And so it's 9 weeks live, and it will be experiential. It's not just me lecturing. It's really about building community. It's really about learning how to do this in real time, how to work with yourself, how to have conversations with yourself, how to communicate with other people, really about learning, how to be present with somebody when you're having a conversation with them and really seeing um, the loving essence inside of them. That's so important. And I think part of the reason that people are so disconnected from themselves, disconnected from healthcare, especially, is that, the doctor's like, okay, why are you here? And there's no connection, right? I'm typing away at my computer now because how are you? What's going on with you? Okay, yeah. Here's your prescription, right? We have to connect. We have to know how to connect with ourselves. We have to know how to connect with other people. And there's so much separation that causes so much illness and so much sadness in the world. I think, we're separated from ourselves, we're separated from the planet, we're separated from each other. That's one of the biggest problems on the planet. And so the solution to that is connection.
And this is Fridays, right? You said for 9 weeks, Friday Pacific time?
Starting Pacific time, starting January 9th. So,
Very
yeah.
good. And we'll include the details of that in the show notes. So feel free to check that out and check out Dr. Kelly for more. That sounds like an amazing program. Seriously. And I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of that. So you said you took a while to come up with that title.
I did. Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I use AI a lot, and my chat GPT and I are like best buds. And so, yeah, we worked on that for a long time because I wanted to come up with something that was like functional medicine 2.0, right? What's the next step of functional medicine? Because functional medicine is great. I love it. It's so useful and it's helped so many people. And it's missing a big piece. That whole concept of the root cause, I think, is really where humanity needs to go. Not just for health, but for connection, for healing, for peace. We can't solve peace if we don't understand ourselves. We can't. There's a lot of things that we can't do. How did I encapsulate that? And I found this concept in uh, Greek, um, about the veil and how, our connection to our soul and to our spirit is just, it's like a gossamer veil between who we are and our spirit. But we think it's like this magical thing. I got to pray to God. I got to do all these things. Like, I need Jesus as an intermediary. I don't happen to believe that. I think we have the capacity inside of ourselves and it's right there. And so if you remove the veil, you're connected to yourself, you're connected to spirit, you're connected to the universe.
Mm.
And then you can connect to other people.
You've tapped into something there, which is that some people tend to believe certain things and need to perhaps uncover different layers or certain truths. There may be some myths. I want to do just a quick exercise with you, some myth busting, just some short answers to some of the common myths that might be popping up in people's minds. Okay,
Okay.
here we go. Myth number one: if I just find the right pill, I'll be fixed and done.
Yeah, there's no pill for separation, disconnection from self.
Perfect. Myth number two: if I'm sick, I've failed somehow.
And that's one of the biggest reframes that I hope that people take away from this, is that your body isn't against you. There's no failure. There's no judgment. There's only opportunity to be curious, to be open to the possibility that your body is speaking to you and you're misperceiving what it's trying to say.
Wow. Number three: science and spirit. Myth number three: science and spirituality cannot sit at the same table.
I don't know, they already sit at the same table. Einstein was quite a spiritual guy, right?
Yes.
Probably one of the most brilliant minds who's ever existed on the planet. So if it
Nice.
exists in him,
Chuck,
So
what myth did you grow up with, that grow up believing?
Now if you watch this episode, you probably already know the answer to that. If you, it's probably just believing that that pill would work. So,
Mm.
yeah.
And, I almost want to say, like, getting better is hard, right? That's a myth. We think that getting better is hard, healing is hard, the healing journey. We talk about it as it's got to be this long thing. It can happen like that. We just
Totally.
don't often have the consciousness to make that radical shift. I think it's completely possible. I'm not saying I'm there, right? But I do think it's possible that is available to us, to everyone, right? Our
Mm.
birthright is to be ourselves. The reason that we go through illness, the reason that we experience life, the reason we get lost is so we can find ourselves again.
Wow. Actually, you segued perfectly into a curious question that I have. I have seen Chuck, my friend, evolve over the last few years by going through his journey and coming out on the other side and being open to so many more possibilities and perspectives. And you mentioned one or two of your clients who had been through their own health journeys and now came out to become healers themselves. And I agree with you that I do believe a lot of the most amazing healers in the world are people who have been through it themselves because they totally understand and can empathize and know how to navigate through the journey. So you seem to be a very well put together person. Is there something in your past that has been a catalyst for you being an incredible healer today?
Yeah, I have my own story. I grew up in a moldy building, but I didn't really get sick until after residency. I moved to Oregon. I was working in a small town in Oregon. I was pretty miserable. I was lonely. I was alone. It was depressingly rainy in Oregon. I had been in Arizona for 4 years and hadn't realized how much I loved the sun. And I got really sick. I developed chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. I would take naps or have a massage therapist come in and give me a massage during lunch because I couldn't get through the day. And yeah, I was very unhappy. I was practicing conventional medicine in a small rural area in Oregon, and I didn't know how to get through that. And so I ran away. I quit. I left and I went and got another job, and mold continued to follow me. I moved to California and I've been running from mold ever since in many ways. Like 3, 4, 5 houses have been moldy. And, you know, I think that the lessons that I have are being true to myself, recognizing my own value. I was in a long-term relationship for almost 7 years, and I kept thinking that I just needed to love him more. I just needed to, like, let go of the little voice inside of me that didn't really love this guy, and that was not the case at all. I just needed to actually honor that little voice that said, "No, he's not the guy for you," right? And when I finally did that, a lot of things got better. And I still think that those are some of the beliefs that I have. I mean, um, I'm still working on them. It is always a work in progress. I'm not perfect. Um, I'm in a marriage that is probably ending soon, and I love him and he loves me, but we are not the right people for each other. I am not my best self with him. He is not his best self with me.
Mm.
I think that many people come together for specific reasons and to heal each other. And sometimes they can heal those wounds and they can make it work.
Mm.
And sometimes you just can't really make it work. And I think that, we are no longer capable of helping each other heal those wounds. And it's time to separate. And in that, I'm learning that my worth and my value, I have to honor that in everything that I do in my practice, every relationship that I'm in, not just with my husband, but with myself.
Mm.
And the more that I do that, the more energy I have, the more power I have, the more happy I am. And it's really exhausting to live a lie, right? Whatever that lie is that we're telling ourselves, whatever that lie is that we're presenting to the world, it's exhausting.
Mm.
You get a lot of energy back when you start speaking your truth.
Yeah, wow.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, the first word that comes to mind is courageous. And I have met people that have been in abusive, unhappy marriages for 27 years. And they say, he's been abusive for 27 years. And the question is, well, after the first time he was abusive, why did you stay? And unfortunately, a lot of people just feel it's easier. It's an easier choice to just stay rather than to make those changes in their lives. And I have a belief that no matter what relationships come and go, and they're wonderful for a period of your life, and then maybe perhaps later they're not the right person, it's all for a reason. Because the reason why we come together at a certain point is at that time in our life, that is the right person for us, and there might be months or years, even decades where that is the perfect person for me at that time of our life. But we're all evolving and changing as humans. And sometimes it's together, sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's a little bit of separation and then come back together again. That's wonderful as well. But it's never a failure if people in a relationship decide, let's explore another way to move forward that may not be together. Amazing. And thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Kelly. It's really precious that you have done that on our show. I think Chuck and I, from time to time, as a couple of guys, we have chatted about past relationships and things that we've been through. And as guys, we never get too, sooky or, sentimental. But of course, men, women, older people, younger people, we all have emotions and feelings. We all go through them, and it's painful, but it's also courageous to face it, as you said, to make the decision or to discuss the decision that this may not be something that's going to continue.
Yeah, thank you. One of my teachers once told me that in terms of like staying in an abusive relationship, you will only stay with somebody who abuses you less than you abuse yourself.
There it is. There it is.
Wow, my goodness.
That person thinks they're that unworthy because they've been abusing themselves so much.
Shit, I've got goosebumps. Oh my God.
Yeah. So when people start to believe that they are worthy, they won't put up with it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But that takes a lot of work to really identify those misbeliefs. And this is the unforgetting project, right? Because it's not true. We all are spiritual beings having a human experience, and the opportunities to be the most authentic, light-filled version of ourselves.
Mm.
I'm not special. I don't get to be that because I'm special. We all have that. That is all of our birthrights. We have to choose it. We have to go after it.
Authentically, as you said at the very start. Dr. Kelly, we're getting towards the end of our show, so I just want to have some practical steps for our audience, people that are resonating with our topics today. Where do they start? If they think, okay, that orange light, like the amber light or the red light that I'm sensing now in a part of my life, what do I do? It's not as simple as just going to your local GP, right? Where do they start?
Well, I think it starts looking at all the different levels. So assess where you are physically, honest with yourself about what you're feeling physically. Try not to dismiss things and rationalize things, and take inventory. And then take inventory of your thoughts. What are the thoughts? How is it that you're talking to yourself? Take inventory of your emotions. What emotion do you feel most of the day? Keep a little journal. Well, now I feel angry. Now I'm kind of irritated. Now I'm frustrated. There's a really cool model by a man named David Hawkins, and it's frequencies of emotions. And so it's very clear in his frequency chart. Love vibrates at 500. I was talking with a patient the other day, and she came in totally apathetic. And apathy is like right down there at the bottom. So at the very bottom is shame, guilt. And then, then the apathy was somewhere, let's say guilt let's say shame is 20 and guilt is 30. I don't have all these memorized. Apathy is 50 or 60. But now she's enraged. I was like, look at this. You're making progress. Your enraged is 150. No? Great. That's awesome. We raised you raised your vibration. And, we want to be at 500. You want to like embody love. Guess what's even higher than that? Peace. Peace is 600. When was the last time you felt at peace? So take an inventory. Really be honest with yourself. And then take an inventory of your spiritual health. You feel connected to yourself. You feel connected to something bigger than you. And depending upon which area of your being you think is the most loud, like what is really making the most noise, then maybe you will go see somebody who can help you with that part. They're all connected, but you got to start somewhere. People come into me because they have physical stuff. Medical doctor, that's what I do. They don't know that they have emotional, psychological, and spiritual stuff. But if you're doing your inventory and you're like, I think I really need a therapist. I've got this, emotional stuff. I've got these cognitive, mental stuff. I really got to do that and do that. And hopefully that therapist will be able to help move the needle, and then you're off to the races. Everybody's journey is going to be different. I learned from my patients that there is no one program that is going to work for everyone. There's no one book, there's no one pill, there's no one, you have to find the stuff that works for you. The diet that is your unique personal diet. Starting a keto diet or starting a gluten-free diet is just the starting place. And then you have to dial it in for you. Same thing with all the other stuff. Who is on your team in terms of a healthcare provider? You might need somebody to do body work on you. You might need an energy healer. You might need somebody who does Reiki. You might need a chiropractor. You might need an acupuncturist. You might need to do a program called Primal Trust. You might need to do my program. So go after the things that resonate with you that you're drawn to.
You want to know what the top emotion is, that frequency chart?
Yes, please.
It's enlightenment. 700 to 1000 energetic log.
Yeah.
And then love, what you said was, before, that's 500. You're right. 700 to 1000.
Yeah.
Chuck, I'm going to throw over to you in a moment. Just going to do a little bit of a summary. For our audience watching, you can visit the Spring Center website at thespringcenter.com. And center is spelt with ER. That's American style. In Australia, we spell it RE, but ER. The personal site and programs, upcoming programs, drkellymccann.com. We're going to put these links in the description. Upcoming transformational programs, as Dr. Kelly mentioned, coming up in January, and her forthcoming book. Look out for that. If you're new here, you can join our Masters of Wellness community, which we're going to pop a link in there as well. Connect with us on LinkedIn, check out the website, and jump on the newsletter so you don't miss future episodes like this. If you've got a question about your own health journey as a portal to purpose, send it in. We might tackle it in a future Q&A episode. Today, we explored illness not as a life sentence, but as a doorway. We talked about purpose, coherence, and a revolution in how we see healing. Chuck, your big takeaways from today.
I'd like to couple my big takeaways into potential slogans for the Unforgotten Project, unless you have one already. You have slogans? Or a slogan?
Go for it.
All right. I got 3. Here are my takeaways.
Okay.
Illness isn't the enemy, it's the messenger. Your body is not betraying you, it's trying to wake you up. And healing isn't just getting rid of symptoms, it's becoming who you were always meant to be.
Wow. Gold.
I love that one. That's my favorite too.
There you go. Yeah, this has been amazing. Thank you. I would look forward to hearing about your book too.
And Dr. Kelly, what message to the world would you like to leave?
One, that there's always hope if you're struggling with any illness or just weird symptoms that you can't make sense of. There's always hope. If you're feeling lost and alone, your connection to yourself, your connection to the universe is always there as well. And I think that illness is part of the human condition, but it's also our pathway back to ourselves.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Tune in again next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with the people that you love. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.